Hey everybody, and welcome to The Breakthrough Effect. I'm your host, Jared Sebesta. I've had two successful careers. First, I was an award-winning TV meteorologist, and then a financial marketing strategist. I was living the dream, making good money, but inside I was craving for something more, something bigger. So I stopped deferring life and I started creating exactly the life I was searching for. I doubled down on unlearning old mindsets and creating big breakthroughs for me and my family. And now I'm bringing that same transformation to you. Let's understand the rules of this game. Let's get clarity. Let's stop chasing and start becoming. This is the Breakthrough Effect.
Sometimes you just got to take your hat off and throw it over the fence, and then you just got to go get it. What is the one thing that you could do today to begin to activate that dream? Take that hat off, throw it over the fence, and just go do that one thing. And then you're going to see that that's a win, right? And it's going to put all the good stuff in your blood, and you're going to go, oh, and over to the dinner time conversations with your beloved, you'll say, I'm beginning to think this might really work.
All right, today on The Breakthrough Effect, I am talking with my good friend, Dr. Joe Hill, a man who spent 3 decades in educational leadership before discovering the most counterintuitive barrier to breakthrough performance. Your smartest people can actually be your team's biggest limitation. As the founder of Higher Performance Group and creator of the TQ Team Intelligence Methodology, Dr. Joe has cracked the code on what he calls the individual brilliance ceiling, a phenomenon where high IQ talent somehow becomes the team's performance cap instead of its catalyst. Get ready for a breakthrough conversation that will challenge everything you think you know about leadership, team performance, and why great leaders don't scale, but great leadership teams do. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Joe Hill. Dr. Joe, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you. It's good to be. I think this is number 2. You know, sometimes you have those real selective people that you only put on the show like a few times a year. I hope this gets to be like an annual thing, because I love everything that you're doing, boss.
Well, I love our conversations. I always get energy. I love what you have to say. You're a good-looking guy, so I got you on the show a lot for that. And we're fellow UND Fighting Sioux members. How about that?
I don't remember any fight songs, but I do remember "In Heaven There Is No Beer." That's
that is fantastic. Yeah, for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, they sing that during the hockey games. I think still do. Yes, yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. Let's get started. You talk about canceling average. I love that saying. What does it mean to be average? How do people know perhaps they're playing too average, and how do they break through?
Yeah, this came from just my own pain point of watching the world just kind of shifting towards this complacency in all things life and leadership. Like, good enough. And this was before meh. You know, my kids had to teach me meh. But basically, cancel average is let's cancel meh or anything mediocre. I've been doing leadership assessment or leadership team assessments for years. And the surprising fact is most teams come together. They've got PhDs, really smart people that they vetted forever to say, all right, you have landed now your destination job. But when they get together and they start talking about communication and team connection and team alignment and all the things that make stuff work, the augmentation of these assessments, it's absolutely just like 60%. And I don't know what your grading scale was in high school, but 60% was see me after class. That was not good. So during COVID, I was like, everybody was canceling everything, right? Hashtag and everything. I was like, I just want to cancel all things average. And I'd have mathematicians going, Joel, that's actually not possible. But it was more just metaphorically the illustration of, can we just like level it up a little bit, folks?
Yeah, I love that. Why do we get stuck? You know, I go and speak to groups and I say, you know, we're the top of the food chain. We're the smartest species on planet Earth. How come we're the ones that get stuck in this average rut? In your opinion, how does this happen?
You know, it's this brain science stuff that would tell you, one, if you really studied it with a critical eye, the potential that we have is I just learned a word over the weekend called petabytes. We have more petabyte memory storage in our in that cabeza of ours, right? Than most like chat GPTs and all of the Claudes and everything that you have to assist you now stacked up together. It's amazing the potential that we have. But we also have this, I don't know where it comes from in terms of where it is in the brain, but it's the lazy mechanism. And I don't know if it's nature or nurture, right? But it is that let's let okay just be okay, right? We learn to just kind of settle when there's always skyscrapers worth of more potential in everything that we do. You just got to put it to the test. You know, people are afraid to start stuff, aren't they? Oh, I've never written a book before. Well, why don't you write a sentence? You're on your way. Right? It's that methodology to get that brain just moving in the right direction that builds all the right chemicals into your brain that says, and your bloodstream. And then after a while, you start to think, you know what? I'm a writer. And you start telling yourself, I'm a writer because I'm writing. Right? And so it's just building the confidence, not necessarily the competence, because we're all pretty stupid when we start new things, right? Gretzky was kind of wobbly on the skates as a 3-year-old, right? But after a while, we learn to be confident in our own skills and abilities, right? It's the stuff we tell ourselves.
I think I've heard it said so many times too, that confidence, we wait for the confidence to come before we start. And the confidence comes from actually doing it, failing, but proving to ourselves that we can actually do it. It's such a great way to look at that.
So true.
Yeah, I love that. So when you work with teams, you work with leaders, you find somebody that's maybe not performing at their highest level. Like, what is that magic pill to tell them to kind of get in the game and get in the arena, and or how do you approach that? Because I've thought that as we've done these podcasts, because I think a lot of people, me included, we're playing below our fullest potential. Like, what is that magic pill statement that you say, or maybe methodology that you do to approach people who are maybe, again, playing a little too small?
Yeah, I think putting truth on the table. You know, and everybody wants to be a winner or be a part of a winning team. But if you can show evidence, because sometimes we think it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? If you want to look that up, right? I call it, in simple terms, that's big hat, no cattle, right? I'm a farm kid. Big hat, no cattle, right? You talk smart, but the results just aren't there. The opposite of that is that imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I don't think I have what it takes, and you know, that's not humility, right? So somewhere in the middle of the imposter syndrome and that big hat, no cattle, I think is just being able to put truth on the table and go, oh my goodness. For leaders, I give just a quick baseline assessment to say, what are you created? And I use that word specifically. What are you created to do better than anyone else? And I put that in objective terms. And here's the truth. People don't like to get objectified until they are. This is where you as a podcast host would go, ooh, tell me more, right? Until they see truth right out in front of them, like as a mirror that they can look at and go, is that what you see in me? Because I haven't been totally convinced. And to put that in front of people and they go, talk about breakthrough. No. You're wired, you're created to do this. So why aren't you doing it well? Role models, my gender, my faith, my past life experience, just all the oughts and shoulds start to pile up, and we start shoulding all over ourselves, right? Well, right? You know, so that's, I think, on the leader front, being able to really have the privilege of that access to actually be able to work with leaders one-on-one and point to, you have no idea what's under that hood of yours, boss. And how are you using that?
I want to remind my listeners why I had you on the show. I love your mannerisms, and you're so articulate in how you explain this stuff. I love this stuff. You know, the way that I would frame it is that it really comes down to your truth versus the truth. If people can replace their own truth, and I don't mean that in a trivial way, but like what they actually believe about themselves versus what is actually true. You know what I mean? Because at the underneath us all, there's some sort of truth, and that is preventing us from reaching and breaking through to our next level. With all the experience you've had, what is kind of an ongoing theme of a lie, a non-truth that people are believing as the truth?
I think collectively, I work across various sectors, but I work primarily with teams, and oftentimes they'll hire a leader based upon some underperformance. Well, we've got to find the leader that's going to help us close this gap. So they find, just the intellectual prowess. They look for, okay, what university did they go to? Just the pedigree. That is an abject lie, is bringing the smart leader theory, bringing the smartest person into your organization, right? You mentioned it earlier, Jared, that we tend to hit that leader capacity ceiling, right? It should be a multiplication issue. You get smart and healthy and secure people in a room, all on mission. Here's where we're going. Here's what we think we can hit over the next quarter, semester, whatever it happens to be. And recognizing that I am not the superpower. I am part of the collective, and please allow me to do what I'm best. And I'm going to defer to you to allow you to do what's best, and to see holes in some of our solutions as seen by sometimes troublemakers. I've redefined that to go, no, they're just wired differently and they see the world much differently than you do. So I think that's the lie, is you find a solution in a person to come in and solve your problems. Man, oftentimes the smartest people are not very good team builders.
I think that transcends personal growth and business. I think there's a lot of keys in that as well. Again, in your intro, you talked about how some of those people can actually be the biggest limiting factors. And again, on an individual basis, again, we create these outcomes, and where it's like, if they've got the answer or this, here it is, like, I've written a book, and it's like, no, the answers really aren't in that book. You actually have a lot more of the answers than what you think you do. It's just kind of like understanding what the real issue is, not a problem, because I don't think people have problems. Like, what is the actual thing preventing you from going to that next level? I think it's a fantastic way to look at it.
Yeah, I look for three. And I stole it from Patrick Lencioni. We've got to have humble people that go, I know what I got, but I also know what I don't got, right? And we have to have hungry people, those that are they get up in the morning with incredible ambition beyond what they know that they can do themselves. We can get into, just boomers and Gen X and millennials. And there's an interesting twist, I think, going on as we look at what's happening within workforce as well, in terms of just that ambition. But the last one is smarts. You just got to be competent in, whether it's predicting weather, right? Or leading a school system, two past pathways for us. You have to know what you're doing, right? To be able to build trust and to empower others. They got to see you as pretty competent, right?
Yeah. I do like it's a humble, hungry, smart methodology that Lencioni has. I've heard that before, read that book, and it is really powerful. Let's dissect one of those. And the one that really gets me excited is the hunger part. What I see, again, I'm a small town trailer park kid who grew up in a dysfunctional home, which I know that there are some similarities in our stories there, which I would love to get into just a little bit. But it was like, that hunger piece, in my opinion, can transcend so much of the smarts and even the strategy. And man, isn't it cool when you see a leader, young or old, and they're still hungry? Like, why is that piece of the puzzle so powerful?
It's got to come from the inside. And I'm not woo-woo. If you think that you need to motivate a team member to have them get up and get to work, right? You can go to work, but getting to work is a whole different thing, right? The work. That ambition, it's got to come from inspiration, right? Not motivate. It's got to come from the inside of, and I think there's some idealism that's connected to this. Not in the sense of real soft and fluffy idealism. It's I believe in whatever the cause is, right? You can call it a moral imperative. In today's world, veritas, what is truth? It's hard to just nail down and go, the truth is true. Well, that's your truth. But there is like, if you're working within communities, you want to create more prosperity, right? That's an idealistic viewpoint on the world. So how do we create ambitious people that have this idyllic mindset? Those are the builders. I led a roundtable filled with lots of smart people last week and still flying high because of the exchange and the engagement there. And I just started to call them builders because they truly are. They're in position, on mission, willing to make the hard decisions that might actually get them tossed out. I mean, it's that level of commitment to the mission, right? So that ambition, I think, has to be both internally, but also driven towards a more moral, ethical, idyllic future.
How do you get people to tap into that? Is it really tapping into the why and getting down to the crux as to, letting that be the driver? And the reason why I ask that is because I know some people who will just honestly tell me, they're like, I just don't have the fire I used to have. And so, like, how do people who maybe don't have that fire get more of it? Or is that even possible?
That is a really good question. I know that I shared this with the team out in Arizona last week. I said, because they had a ton of performance issues going on, and a number of their VPs were just chasing after underperformers. I said, I got to remind you that you do become the average of the 5 people that you're hanging out with most often, right? And if you're chasing down your underperformers all day, every day, guess what? You might start to smell like an underperformer yourself. So we have to be careful to differentiate ourselves. Yes, we've got to deal with performance issues on the inside, but I think pulling yourself into communities and roundtables like I had with people that are also humble and hungry and smart and ambitious. And I would add another one to that Lencioni thing. We got to have healthy people, right? Because the work, I think, is becoming easier, thank you, AI. But the complexity of the work, I think, demands that we have really high energy levels, not only coming into the week, but also sustained throughout the week. I asked my wife this morning before she went off to school. She's a school teacher. I said, now, because we had a really wild and crazy weekend. We're building a cabin right now, and we also watched my daughter run the Twin Cities Marathon, and then we went to just a fun play at the Ordway in the Twin Cities. And I said, are you going to be working from rest, or are you resting from work, right? Did you get enough rest over the weekend? And no, we're both a little bit behind. So, yeah.
That's a huge part.
That healthy part, I think, is really, really important.
100%. And I'm seeing that resurgence just kind of come back. And I'm not even talking politics. I'm just saying in general, people are like re-understanding their health, mental health, physical health, how big of a factor that is. Probably more so, way more so than what we were raised with back in our day. Speaking of that, I do want to just rewind the tape a little bit. You don't have to dive. You can go into as much or little detail as you wish. But you grew up with some challenges, as did I. As a guy now who, is got 50 on the horizon, I look at that differently. I look at the way that I was raised differently, and I realize just what a gift that was. And I got to tell you, I'll just be honest with you, for decades, that really, really weighed me down in a lot of ways, and I didn't realize how that was restricting me from breaking through to my next level. I've been able to reframe some of the things I went through, and I'm able to say now, what a gift, what an honor that I had a chance to go through some of those things that God gave me. And again, I'm not going to go super woo on you, but like I was given those opportunities to experience that. And those things help elevate me. Go back in the past a little bit, talk about some of those really difficult things and how you have been able to reframe or articulate those now into the profound impact that you're having on other people.
Yeah. I think growing up without a whole lot, you learn to hustle. having to basically, raise my siblings because of two parents that had drinking issues. That was a real deal. Watching one of them work the program, understanding how important it is to stay just disciplined to what you want. That was important. Watching another just struggle for decades and decades, but then to see him break through in the last lap of life showed me that all things are possible if given the time, and just stay into the plan. But sometimes the gifts just get opened a little bit later in life, don't they? Standing in the short line for lunch tickets as a kid, getting the other kind of lunch tickets as a kid. It was maybe a little embarrassing at the time, but in getting, holiday gifts and birthday gifts that still had the garage sales masking tape on it. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but I don't need much. It has taught me just this level of contentment. My wife and I we're building this cabin right now out in the woods, and every weekend we sleep on the ground floor. We just pop the tent up and roll the sleeping bags out. A lot of people go on these excursions to go camping. Well, it's just kind of a lifestyle for us. We don't need a cushy mattress, and we can eat. Honestly, we were eating baked beans out of a can. Like, it's fuel. We're going to need some fuel because I'm hanging sheetrock today. It's just the lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that we have. And if given a boatload of resources, I don't know if I'd change much of how I live today. I've learned to be much more generous, right? I don't know. I'm certainly far from, any righteous individual, but it has taught me to just be grateful for, oh my goodness, look at this. What a gift. What a blessing. I don't need much.
Yeah.
So I think that creates a good foundation to actually live from, right? Because you walk through an airport, you walk through a big mall, and you just see people indulging. And it's just, I think, one of the sorriest sights. Let's go State Fair, Minnesota. But I tell you what you observe at that place is absolutely, it's just 100,000% gluttony.
I would agree.
Let's celebrate a little bit. But I'm like, don't need all that.
Where does that, were you always that way, or is that something that you learned later in life where you've been able to embody that embodiment of gratitude? Because I sense that's your energy. And I think that's why you are able to have such the impact on people and organizations and help other leaders like reach their levels. Like, have you always been that way, or was that kind of a metamorphosis over time?
I think I've always been a thankful kid. I'm a feeler dude. Okay, so for those of you that get into personality assessments, yeah, I represent the minority class of males. I just have a heart that kind of emotes. If you're having a rough time, I want to lean in and go, oh, let me help you get off that ledge if you're thinking about jumping, right? I just want to be the guy that sees the potential in others, and I get welled up with tears when people just see that light. When that spark hits them, it is an absolute day maker. So I care deeply. I care deeply about people and humans. And this is a hard time to be a human on this planet right now. We can get into how we effectively work through stress and pressure and that kind of thing, maybe on another podcast. But yeah, that's me to the core.
Well, I ask that because I see a guy who is obviously living in their rhythm, in their sweet spot, as it's been said before. I'll just share, like, I just did a talk the other day, and there was this gentleman. He stuck around after to kind of just share a couple of words, and I was so thankful. You could tell he was deeply moved, And I was just kind of like wrapping up and, on my way out. And he just stopped. He goes, Jared, he goes, without a shadow of doubt, you're doing the most powerful thing that you could possibly be doing with your life. And that comment meant the world to me, because when I'm at 3:00 in the morning and I'm contemplating, like, did I make the right move? What am I doing? Who am I? The imposter syndrome, the lies, all the things, right? I told him that. I go, I will remember what you just said. I think at the end of the day, people want to live an impactful life that is meaningful. It's connected to their soul. They want to help other people, but they feel like they don't know what to do, or they don't feel that they have it in them. It's all those lies coming back. And so again, I'm trying to get to the heart as to how did you get to this point, Dr. Joe? Like where you are now living in your zone. Not that there aren't challenges, not that there aren't worries as to where the next paycheck is going to come, because business is wild in today's world. But like, how do people get to where you are, not from a financial or success standpoint, but to be able to walk in the zone, break through where they are, and truly step into a life that matters?
I'll give you the very practical way, right? But I'll lead into that with just that desire and just that your own calling and that ambition. I remember, I don't think anybody has a BS job, but there are BS jobs. I hear authors talking about, well, that's a BS job.
Hey, TV weatherman?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's just jobs that people are going, I just gotta bring something home, or just, I've been doing this for 15 years and I don't know what I would do if I didn't do this, right? That's the mindset of a BS job, something that doesn't have worthy value to you. When I decided, and I had to envision this, I'm somebody that can be a bit prophetic. I can always see it before it happens. And if I can see it vividly clear, then I can absolutely, my 40-yard dash time wasn't fast, but I can sprint. I can sprint towards that vision to make it happen. And people usually are trying to knock you down, going, are you silly? Wait a second. You know what the stakes are if you trip and fall here? Do you know? So I think the desire part has to lead out. But then the practical part of it's not bad to have a bit of a safety net, right? When I decided to start my own consulting practice, I had to ask my beloved Becky permission, because it's important. Stability is really, really important to her, right? So I had to build up enough of a base to go, is this enough? Is this enough for me to launch? I had a bit of a paper route. Sometimes you just do things to earn revenue okay. And once we got it to that point, I was liberated basically, where she said, because the two became one, literally, the two became one. And it was that important to me that we were doing this together. So if you're in covenant and relationship, make sure that you're chasing a dream that is also supported greatly as well. So that's more the practical part of this. But wow, the grit and grind, blood, sweat, tears, you've got to have courage to jump into your own desire. Because like I said, all the world will tell you, Chat GPT might even tell you, you're a little bananas in the head, dude. This might not work out. And that stuff just sticks in that 3.5 pounds of mass between your ears, and it will remind you on the minute how silly this thing actually is. And when you get a few wins, and you have to remember those. And this is where I get watered up thinking about that comment that you received. Whew, because they come so far and so few in between, just the grit and gutting it out every single day to say, I want to make a difference, and this is worthy work. And you have to be that internal self-talk all the time. There's some good podcasters out there that I listen to as well that help.
It really comes down to what is happening in between your ears, because if that isn't right, you will never do what it takes to get over that hump. Because whenever you take a leap and try to break through into your next level, it has to take an amount of just irrational belief. Not that there isn't strategy and, planning like you mentioned, but there has to be, I find so many people, they want to have this perfect bridge where they just jump from one rock to the other and those rocks are basically touching. And I said, it rarely, if ever, works out that way. What's kind of the secret thing? For me, when I'm teaching people, I'm like, it really comes down to kind of some illogical belief, some childlike faith that doesn't make sense to most people. In fact, it may not even make sense to you logically, but in your heart, you know it. Like, what's that magic button or the secret sauce that people can kind of take and digest to help them get to the next level?
I don't think there's it's nothing magic. I think it's mustard. Okay. It's just, I forget who, might have been Lencioni again, that talks about the 20-mile march. You know what you must do every single day, right? If you're marketing yourself, you know what you need to do to just be out there, developing the connections, starting the conversations. And it's just the behind the scenes work. That 20-mile march, and it is a commitment to say, I'm going to do this every single day. And over the next 3 years, look, I'm starting here in Anacortes, Washington, and now I'm all the way over in Bar Harbor, Maine. Look at how far I've gone in terms of just this performance. That doesn't happen by you getting up in the morning and just having a dream. It only happens by having that ambition. We go back to the hunger part. The hunger that says, well, it's Labor Day today. Everybody else is having a barbecue. Nope. There's no vacation days when you're doing this work. I got to get my 20 miles in, just clicking all the buttons, the boxes, whatever my disciplines are every single day. That's what it's about. I think that is the dream. Building worthy work is hard work.
I got one more question for you, and then I want to land this plane. We could go on for a lot more, but I think that's a great way to start to kind of descend this flight here into the end. If you could just, we've kind of touched on it already, so I don't want to be redundant here, but if you could just reach into the minds of people that are listening right now and just delete one piece of software off there and install one very simple program that would elevate their performance and help them become a better leader, a better husband, father, business owner, mother, wife, whatever that looks like, what would be one little piece of software that you could install?
That is a really good question. For the leader or the team?
I'm thinking more of the leader, the individual who's know that there's more, can feel it, sense it, taste it, smell it, but have a hard time getting over that next obstacle, so to speak.
Yeah. I had a friend who told me when I was just going back, I was in dreamer mode. I think we all start in dreamer mode before it actually starts to apply into doing mode. He said, sometimes you just got to take your hat off and throw it over the fence, and then you just got to go get it, right? So that's dealing with some of that imposter syndrome, or I don't know if this is real practical. What is the one thing? What is the one thing that you could do today to begin to activate that dream? Take that hat off, throw it over the fence, and just go do that one thing, and then you're going to see that that's a win. Right. And it's going to put all the good stuff in your blood, and you're going to go, oh, and over to the dinner time conversations with your beloved, you'll say, I'm beginning to think this might really work. But it doesn't happen by you sitting and just reading other people's success stories. You just got to get out there and put yourself into the ring.
I got chills, my man. That's killer. I love that. What a great way to end the show. You've got a ton of great one-liners and stories. It's incredible stuff. I am so appreciative for you spending a half an hour on the show here with me today. Before I let you go, where can people find you? You're a great follow on LinkedIn. Guys, if you're not following Dr. Joe on LinkedIn, make sure that you are. But where else can people find what you're up to?
Yeah, I'm pretty much just singularly LinkedIn. I'm a Delta snob when I fly, and I do LinkedIn, and I kind of just drink one kind of coffee too. You just got to keep it simple. So yeah, LinkedIn, you can find me, Dr. Joe Hill. Higherperformancegroup.com is our website. So lots of resources in there. We've created a thing called the group as well. So we're creating a bit of a community of if I'm doing a newsletter, my own podcast, I'll create leader guides. So there were a number of things that maybe were golden nuggets that came out of this exchange. What I do is I take those and just put them into a leader guide and go, hey, why don't you just go teach this to your team? Right? So that can be found. You can find that in the highperformancegroup.com website as well.
Dr. Joe in the house. Bam!
Boom!
Look at this guy. Dude. It's got the trifecta. The sound, the look, the info. Dang, man. You're the real deal.
Let's keep locking arms and changing this crazy world together.
It needs it, for sure. If this conversation sparks something in you, don't let it fade. Please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Don't forget to connect with me online as well. Follow me at Jared Sebesta on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, or dive deeper at my website, jaredsebesta.com, where all my free trainings and resources are waiting for you. And remember, stop chasing the life you want and start becoming. This is the Breakthrough Effect. We'll see you next time.